Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing great and keeping safe. Prince Adu-Appiah here. Thank you for joining this episode. Today, we have a guest from Ghana. Owula Nii Nortei Adumuah is a proactive young man taking bold steps to see a positive mindset shift among African millennials. He is an alumnus of Central University with a Bachelor of Architecture degree and a member of the 2018 British Council Nesta Creative Enterprise program. As a social entrepreneur and budding architect, he finds joy in contributing to improving the built environmental landscape in Ghana, as well as impacting society in diverse ways. This drive propelled him to start Hojja Africa, a non-profit social innovation enterprise with the aim of bridging the knowledge, cultural, and networking gap among the next generation of African youth. He also has several years of volunteering experience up his sleeves. Owula Nortei is passionate about Africa, social architecture, tourism, and creative arts. He believes in a mantra that I love so much that says that the world has space to accommodate everyone, every dream, and every purpose. Find your space. I believe this will be a very informative and inspiring session. If you are here and this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. This is your big leadership lesson. Owula Nortei, how are you doing, my brother? How are you doing?
Mr. Prince, I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm doing awesome, and I am super excited to have you on the show. I think my first encounter with you, if I remember, was some years back. Honestly, I don't remember the year, but this was when I saw a document you had worked on. It was titled Save First Initiative. And I was really blown away by the detail. I think it was a proposal or a concept note, but it was this project that someone had taken the pain to work on it. I mean, the detail was mind-blowing. It had some amazing graphs. When I saw it, I was impressed, and I was wondering who was behind this. Later, I got introduced to you, and as the years have gone by, you have inspired me with so many initiatives that you have been running. Owula Nortei, you run Hojja Africa, you run Design-SCHEL, and you have tons of volunteerism experience. You volunteered for several organizations. And I'm excited to have you on the show.
I'm also excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love for us to go straight into this. With all this background that I alluded to a second ago, I'm dying to know where it all began for you. Your leadership journey. Where did it start? When did you become conscious of it? Or how has the journey been? And yes, tell us all about that.
All right, Prince, thank you very much. And I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to also share my experience on this platform. I think it's a good platform for up-and-coming leaders like myself. When it comes to my leadership journey, where it started from, it started a long time ago, but before I get to that point, I would like to say that I was part of the majority of people who had a very skewed mindset about leadership, that there was a reserve for a particular group of people. So anything about leading or stepping in front, you will never get to me. But as I pondered over this aspect of my life, that how did I become a leader, I realized this very story came into mind. One time I was in church, and this man, I don't know what he saw. He just came to grab my hand and said, "Hey, let's organize this carol program." I think by then it was the first of its kind. And this particular man called Mr. Iram took me through a number of rudiments, like write scripts, direct. It was very awkward. It was a very uncomfortable space for me.
When was this?
That was, if I can recall, 2011, like 2012, thereabouts.
Okay.
It was a very different experience because I wasn't that type that really understood that space. But he found a way to just handpick me, and he guided me like through the steps. And at the end of the day, we brought out a very good production. And that was even my first time I was introduced to theater and the concept of writing, directing, dancing, and all those things. So I believe that is where the leadership journey started. But even as at then, it didn't dawn on me that that was leadership. There wasn't any understanding that what I went through was leadership, because back then I was young and you needed to direct people that were older than you. They could even be your parents, to be part of a certain kind of production. And it really taught me how to deal with people, how to organize myself, time management. And I think one of the things that he made me understand is process. He will tell you, go and write a script. Bring the script, let's review the script, let's change it, let's add this to it, let's do that. He just opened my mind to budget and all those things. And I'm able to appreciate this kind of things because I have grown, and looking back in hindsight, that is what really happened. But back then, I thought it was someone who was just making me a part of a big dream of his. So basically, that is where my leadership journey started, and yeah, that's where it started.
Wow. That is amazing. And boy, we all need you said what's his name, Mr. Aram.
Mr. Aram.
We all need people like that in our lives who would dare us to step outside of our comfort zone. You know, I think my similar experience to yours was when I was in level 100 in school. I had joined this capacity building personal development group called Human Empowerment and Living Potentials Group, which is abbreviated as HELP Group Ghana. So students come together, we challenge ourselves, we give someone a presentation topic to go and prepare and come and stand in front of people, you know. And I had this fear where, you know, I was afraid standing in front of people. I mean, yeah, you might be surprised, but that was my story in level 100 back in the days. And I joined this group. I don't know what the leadership saw, but there is this man I truly respect. He's a mentor, Alexander Nana Boachi. You know, he was the president as at then. One time he just sent, we were meeting on Sunday afternoons, I think 2 to 5 on Legon campus. And he sent me a text message, I think the night before. He was like, Prince, tomorrow, none of the executives are going to show up. We have another meeting, a leadership meeting somewhere. So we want you to take over. Man, I couldn't sleep that night. I mean, I had to plan it. I had to give a presentation that day. I had to make sure everything was on point. I literally did not sleep that night. And fast forward, that meeting was a success. At the end of the year, when we were reviewing, you know, we usually do that, review the entire year. One lady stood up and said, my presentation on that day really changed her life. And I'm like, man, you have no idea. So Richard, I totally relate with that. We all need people like that who dare us, and God bless him. God bless him. So that is where your journey started, and it has been amazing so far. I can testify. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump straight to get your big leadership lesson, or your big leadership lessons that you have for our audience today. Please go ahead.
All right, so thank you very much. So about my leadership lesson, I would like to share it in a certain categorization. So earlier on, I made mention about my encounter with Mr. Aram Ayangle. And that encounter was good because it exposed me to leadership. But between that time and now, I believe I've gone through a number of phases, talk of experimental phases where you wanted to know what leadership is about, volunteerism, and so on. And now, with a bit of knowledge gained, I'm excited. I'm exercising my leadership mandate. So one of the things I learned, or I've learned so far, is I needed to believe that I was a leader. So the belief factor was very necessary because at the point when I had an encounter with Mr. Aram, I didn't believe I was part of the selected few who have the ability to become leaders, a leader. So I had to make sure that I grasped this concept that, hey, I have what it takes to be a leader. And it took me a while because society has a certain skewed mindset when it comes to leadership. In our schools, you realize that they give the best leadership position to the best student and the most beautiful, the most handsome, and all those things, the tall and all those. So there is this sort of marginalization when it comes to leadership, regardless of whatever someone has, which can really push whatever group or whatever school forward. So yes, believing that I was a leader was a big lesson I had to learn. I needed to make sure that every aspect of my being accepts that. Then with time, I needed to understand myself. And so that is what I would put it as, the self-discovery, because every leader needs to discover himself. And that, if I'm putting it in my category, I'll say it's still under my experimental phase. Because at the experimental phase, when you are doing a lot of volunteerism, leading people, running initiatives, what it does is that it helps you to discover what you gravitate towards, the kind of personality you are. And so that is the other lesson that I learned, that as a leader, you need to discover yourself. Who are you? What do you stand for? What are your principles? And what are the things that you are passionate about? And when I was able to go through that phase, that is when I settled in my element. So things like Hojja came into being, things like the safest thing that you are seeing, you made mention of, also came to be. So that's my second leadership lesson. And maybe I'll share the last two that I learned, and that way. When you go through all these phases, the other thing you would also understand is that every leader has a domain. Every leader has a domain. And I would tackle this in two areas. One, a domain in terms of the kind of space that you are born or you have been equipped to operate in. So there are some people that they are very sporty. Everything about them is sport. It's about sport news, sport betting, everything. So that is your domain. And for me, I realized that, okay, having discovered myself, my domain is around culture, it's around youth empowerment. My domain is about people getting to know themselves and things that can make them better. So that is the kind of domain I'm talking about. But also, it also talks about when you look at leadership in the whole, you might have your domain, but there are certain seasons or certain areas that you operate in for a certain time. So there are times that I tell my team that this aspect is not my area, so you take it up. When it comes to things like maybe dealing with certain number of people or human relations to a certain extent, there are some people that are better in their regard. So that is their domain. And so you understand that, hey, I can lead the people, but when it comes to this very aspect, then it is meant for this particular kind of people. So that is what I would say. Then basically to share the rest, I would say um, one other lesson that I also learned is that as a leader, you need to personify your vision. You need to be the arms and the legs of your vision. And this is very important because when people see you, you are the first point of call to whatever thing that you believe or whatever vision or product you are selling. And so you need to understand the vision and imbibe the vision in all regard. But then if you seek to grow and you seek to develop, you need to understand that vision communication is also key. And so by vision communication, you need people who can equally be the arms and the legs of your vision. And I personally struggle with that because, first of all, when you start discovering yourself and you get the idea, let me cite this example. When a lady conceives, I equate it to you having the idea. Okay. Now, during the conception, from the conception to the delivery stage, there's a process. And so every leader goes through that process. So you incubate the idea, you refine the idea needs to take a certain shape. Then when the idea is birthed, the idea needs to grow. Now, the growth point is when you need to what? To be able to communicate the kind of growth that you want. And that always is very difficult. It takes a bit of time. So for instance, if I say Hojja, what does Hojja mean? And where do we want to go? What are some of the principles? And so for me, now that I have this understanding, when you meet my team, anytime we have meetings, you re-echo the vision where you are going, and gradually they grasp it. And so these are some of the things that over the years I have learned. Definitely you can't skip the process of leadership. Every day is a learning phase. Every day is a leading opportunity.
Right.
So
Right.
basically, these are some of the few things I've learned over the years.
These are deep things. Richard, just to so Owula Nortei is also called Richard, and I'm kind of used to that. Forgive me. But the brand name is Owula Nortei. Great. So you believe that you were a leader. In my master's class in organizational leadership, there was this debate: are leaders born or made? I mean, it's amazing. I recall the conclusion to that is that you can become a leader. Yeah, I mean, you can't become. You can. It's a process. Once you go through that learning space, you can't become a leader. And you touched on the fact that sometimes there's this marginalization that has been created that in school, if you are of this class, it means that you become the leader, you become the class prefect and all that. All those things have a way of marginalizing people and making them think they can't be leaders, which these are things that we have to work on. So that was a very important point to our listeners out there. You need to first believe that you are a leader. I think it's a good point for you to tell yourself whilst you are listening to this: I am a leader. I am a leader. I am a leader. Thanks for sharing that, Owula Nortei. Your second point was understanding yourself, and I like the fact that you said after you went through that phase, then you began to birth Hojja Africa, and then Design-SCHEL project and all that. And you made mention about culture. That's the last point. You found your domain to be around culture. Hojja centers on that, SCHEL centers on that. So I'm not surprised. I particularly love what you alluded to, that finding your domain is important, but you also need to respect the domain of others.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is wisdom. That is wisdom. Thanks for sharing these things with us, Owula Nii. I think we can go straight to our very last question, which is not really a question. Do you have any last words out there? Any message that you want to pass across? Anything on your heart you want to pass across to our audience or to the youth listening somewhere across the world?
Well, I do. So, first of all, I'd like every youth out there to know that you can never skip the process. We live in a very fast-paced world, but the fact that the world is fast-paced doesn't eliminate the process. And so I would like all youth that are listening to me to understand that it is process that brings a good output and also brings longevity. We are in very interesting times when things are really happening every now and then. But nevertheless, the process of life still goes on. So I like to encourage everyone to stick to the process and the output will be good.
Great. Stick with the process and the output won't go wrong. It will be good. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Richard Owula Nii Nortei. It's been great having you on the show. Thanks for coming around.
Thank you, Prince, for having me.
I hope you found this session informative. If you would love to hear more, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast across your network. Until we meet again, stay safe and stay inspired.